The last bit about What a Lot of Things says, What a Lot of Things is a quote from The Clangers, the TV show, the 1970s children's show about pink-knitted whistling creatures who live on their own little planet and marvel at the universe around them. And while some people might say that's a reasonable description of Ash and I, we've since updated our podcast artwork to better reflect our tech focus.
So no mention of Aardvarks.
No, I tried. There's just no time. So if we're going to start, I'm going to start by saying, Happy New Year, Ash.
Happy New Year, Ian.
Our Christmas party is next Wednesday, but in podcast time, it's the New Year. I know.
Yeah, this is what Mark wonders about. He wonders about time travel, didn't he?
Well, who can blame him?
Very sensible man.
He is. So, yes, weird time. What's from a Bob's?
Space-time continuum. So, because my dad was a builder, they always had their Christmas party in January, which I always found a bit of a strange timey-wimey thing.
Why did they do that?
Because the building industry basically closes down for a lot of December pretty early, traditionally.
Oh, right. So because they weren't working, they didn't want to see their colleagues at a Christmas party.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fair enough.
And then I think also a Christmas party in January is, as well as being weird, I think it's slightly cheaper as well.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough,
Yeah.
I say.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But as a kid, I was like, this is a very strange phenomenon.
Yes. Just yet another example of humankind torturing time.
Yeah, absolutely. So between that and my worries about nuclear Armageddon and climate change and my childhood.
Tell me you didn't say nuclear.
Nuclear.
Oh, good.
No, I said nuclear.
You could run for president of the United States if you can't say nuclear. It's a common trait.
Well, I think I'd do better than the chap coming in. So it's just my nationality precludes me from running for president of the United States.
Yeah, that's the only reason. Otherwise you'd be doing it right now.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should get into some things then.
Steady on.
I think, we're 15 minutes in.
19
minutes in. I'm being too kind. Let's talk of things.
Well, it's good that the 19 minutes feels like 15 minutes rather than feeling like 38 minutes.
That's true, actually.
It would be a bad sign if you were kind of, oh my God, I feel like I've been here for an hour and a half. And it's like, we're only 3 minutes on the clock. That might just be because I forgot to press record or something. Yes. So I can remember nothing about the previous episode, even though I'm in the middle of editing it.
Yeah.
We talked about, drum roll please, the clock of the long now and software developer productivity.
And
I feel like we talked about software developer productivity first.
Yes, I agree. I concur.
So today we will excitedly talk about whatever my thing is first. I'm sorry about this thing, by the way. In many ways, quite excited about this thing. And in some other ways, I know so little about it that it's almost like I'm just going to sit there and nod my head and say, oh, yes, this seems very good. And then we just kind of move
very
on.
fast. Incredible.
Very fast, yes.
Remarkable.
Is it a new train? No, it isn't.
But what is it, Ian?
What is it?
What is it?
What's what?
The thing that you've brought that isn't a new train.
Are you asking me?
Incredible.
It's my thing.
Yeah.
Well, to avoid being catapulted into the air beyond the great chasm of wherever it was, I will reveal that my thing is Willow. And you might be thinking of a film from the 1980s.
And a slightly dodgy and quickly cancelled series on Amazon, I think, in the last couple of years, which didn't go down very well. But the film Willow was excellent.
Well, it's not any of those things.
Oh, right.
It is Google's new quantum computing chip.
Is it named after the film or the character in the film?
I did ask a Google spokesperson to comment, but they haven't got back to me.
They never comment on the interesting things.
They never do. That's their job.
Well, yeah, that's true, actually.
So the thing is that this quantum computing chip, so the thing that really made me pay attention to it was from Google's blog post announcing it. Willow performed a standard benchmark computation in under 5 minutes. That would take one of today's fastest supercomputers 10 septillion years.
Is that all?
Google's way of contextualizing that number, which is 10 to the power of 25 years, is that it vastly exceeds the age of the universe.
I don't really know what a benchmark computation is, but...
Well, it's obviously a computation that is suited to quantum computers in a way that it's very much not suited to regular computers.
Okay, right, okay.
So presumably it's a standard test for a quantum computer.
Right, okay.
So you should be able to tell me about that. Has no one ever asked you to test a quantum computer before, right?
No, they haven't. They haven't, to be fair. I assume that...
Well, they won't now after they hear this, will they?
No. I assume that quantum computers will be coming to, testing will be dead again once quantum computing comes in. So, I'll prepare a blog post about how it's not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That'd be your response to it. So it's extremely weird. Quantum computing is not something that you are equipped to understand after a career of regular computing.
No, I guess not.
The key... I'm just going to read this. I tried to get an AI to explain this to me. And the AI said the key principles that make quantum computing special are superposition, unlike regular bits that must be either 0 or 1. Qubits, which are, I suppose, quantum computing bits, can exist in a state of being both 0 and 1 at the same time until they're measured.
So Schrödinger, like.
Yeah, it's Schrödinger's bit.
Schrödinger's bit. I mean, I like current bits because you know where you are. It's either a 0 or a 1, but,
That is quite clear. Whereas there is an explanation of this. There's something called a block sphere, and that's block with a CH on the end.
Yeah, because it doesn't make any sense if it's
somebody's
a K, does
name. It doesn't make any sense if it's a K. And what it basically seems to be is that 0 and 1 are the two poles, the North Pole and the South Pole of the sphere. But the value of the qubit can be anywhere on the surface of the sphere.
Okay.
You see, you say okay.
I'm saying okay.
But
no, I understand that bit. I don't understand how it works with quantum computing, but I
don't understand how it's a bit. A bit is a...
But it's not a bit, is it? It's a qubit.
Well, you're right.
Yeah.
So that's one of the two things
that
make quantum computing special. And the other one is entanglement. So 2 or more qubits can be entangled, which basically directly connects the state of it to the state of one of them to the other one. So they basically then have the same state all the time, regardless of the distance between them.
Okay.
Which sounds like instantaneous, faster than light communication to me.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
And that is the other
That is my thing.
So, and what it does is like if there's a problem that involves checking a lot of solutions, then basically you set them all, you create this thing that represents all of the possible solutions.
Yeah.
And then you do a quantum collapse on it, and then it collapses down to the right solution.
Yeah.
And how it does that just seems entirely mysterious to me.
Yeah.
So, there's even an example here, again, courtesy of the AI. Here's a concrete example. Narrator, it's not all that concrete. Say we want to find the factors of 15. So the first thing is classical computer would check 2, 3, 4, 5, one at a time.
Okay.
Quantum computer creates a superposition of all possible factor pairs. And then it uses... I'm just saying these words. It uses quantum gates.
Oh, quantum gates.
It's Bill's older brother. It uses
Bill's much cooler brother.
Yes. It uses quantum gates to check all of the pairs simultaneously.
Oh.
But then it's through interference, wrong answers like 2 and 7 cancel out, and only the correct factors remain.
What's interference?
Well, I think it's interference in the sense of a waveform interfering with another waveform and then cancelling out or reinforcing each other.
All right. So like when the state is like they're connected regardless of distance.
For listeners, Ash is wobbling his hands in a kind of as though he had a piece of string that was forming a wave between his pairs of clenched fingers. He's now just doubling down on this approach of explaining it, which is clearly very useful to me, but because I can see not so useful for people just listening. So this is the key insight, according to Claude, that superposition lets us check many possibilities at once, while entanglement lets us coordinate these checks across multiple qubits.
Okay.
So the art of quantum algorithms is designing operations that make wrong answers cancel out and right answers reinforce each other.
Okay, that's interesting.
So I sort of understand that. And then it talks about this block sphere with an H, and it just says every possible state of a qubit can be represented as a point on the surface of this sphere, and the north pole is 0 and the south pole is 1. And any other point represents, and immediately goes off the rails, a superposition of 0 and 1. The angles theta for up down and phi for around define the exact quantum state. And then it says pure states always lie on the surface and mixed states are inside the sphere, but I don't know what that means at all.
I could just about cope with the surface of the sphere.
But then what it's doing is the operations of the quantum computer are like Boolean logic gates, but not. Well, not is one of them, in fact.
I was like, you blew my mind with that statement. I was like,
I blew my own mind. My mind's been blown ever since I started talking about this. In fact, ever since I found out. So you look at quantum gates in terms of how they move points on the spheres. So there's a thing called a Pauli, I guess named after the physicist, X gate. And then Claude describes that as quantum knot.
All right.
And that rotates the sphere 180 degrees around the x-axis, which will move 0 to 1 and 1 to 0, like flipping a coin from tail to head.
Okay.
But obviously, if it's not exactly at 0 or 1, then it moves round along with the coin flip. Oh, my God. And then we've got the Hadamard gate, which rotates the state 90 degrees around an axis halfway between x and z. So basically, there's loads of this. There's a controlled knot, which works on 2 qubits, so it can't be fully visualized on the block sphere.
That's a shame.
Phase gates. And then there's some principles. All gates must be reversible. They preserve superposition. They can create and manipulate entanglement, and they must preserve the unit radius of the block sphere.
Quantum states always normalized to 1.
Yes.
So what might one use this for, Ian, is my question, being the dreadfully practical man that I am.
Yes. Well, one thing that apparently it's very good at is being able to factorize multiples of 2 large prime numbers, which is bad news for those of us who've ever used RSA or other encryption that depends upon the difficulty of that task.
Oh, yeah, true.
I think all of the numbers will be set up as possibilities and then it will collapse and be left with your private key.
Excellent.
And there are people talking about how it could be used for AI, but I sort of think, oh, well, if you can't use it for AI, then you probably can't get the research funding to do it. So, but no, so I suspect because AI is a lot of these very parallel operations that we use advanced hardware for, that no doubt that is the kind of thing that it feels like the kind of thing you could do with this. Interestingly, things like doing detailed modeling of climate, which is completely out of the range of we try and do it, but it's even today's supercomputers it's very coarse modeling.
Yeah.
And
missing a lot of subtlety there.
And they're also talking about this kind of idea of personalized medicine, so that you get a quantum computer can calculate an exact drug that exactly cures your whatever it is.
Yeah. Generates the right level of profit for the pharmaceutical company as well.
Yes. it's an interesting one because I was talking to someone earlier about this because mind blown. I feel the need to burden everybody I meet with my problems. But we were talking about how it can be used to crack encryption and how intelligence agencies collect enormous amounts of data and they hang on to it, and then one day suddenly they can decrypt it and find out things from 15 years ago which might yet be relevant. And it sort of dawned on me, actually, they probably are going to have to use it very selectively. It won't be, because effectively quantum computer... Have you ever seen a picture of a quantum computer?
No, I can't say I have, actually.
Let's see if we can find a picture of one now. There we go. So what we're looking at here is a...
Chandelier.
Copper chandelier-y thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure chandelier is really a word.
It's an ugly chandelier, I have to say.
Yes, you wouldn't put it in your living room.
No.
Well, you might if you had enough money.
Well, yeah.
But it's basically almost entirely a cooling system because quantum computers need to operate at absolute zero or thereabouts. So there's a very elaborate system of cooling, which is why you get all this kind of copper surface area, or gold. It looks like gold a bit, doesn't it? I think it's gold.
Only so much of that around.
Yes.
A lot of these technologies, it's hard, like you say, it's kind of hard to imagine because they like sort of melt your brain a little bit. It's like, well, what uses can we put this to? And it's then, because you're obviously not going to use a quantum computer to run your e-commerce site. You could, but it feels like overkill, right?
Yeah, you boot it up and Windows appears instantly.
It figures out everything that you need and then buys it for you
before you've
even thought about it.
Yes.
And it's like, right, okay, maybe that's what they'll do, but it feels unlikely. So I assume it will be used for other things other than the mundane, or maybe it won't. I don't know. But I guess the point of any like new sort of sufficiently advanced technology is like it's hard to imagine what you would use it for. But also, I don't think that's a reason not to do it. You know what I mean? It's like it's a good thing to research because it pushes a boundary or two, and you find out new things about how everything works.
You do. And if you can start using these things for simulating stuff like climate things. I did ask Claude, will this destroy the encryption of Bitcoin? And it said sort of. So I think, well, that basically meant was not really. Yeah. Which spoils all my fun.
Sort of. Like that. If you like, Ian.
Yeah.
If it makes you happy, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's got some really interesting applications, but I don't think we're going to have an iPhone 23 with
quantum computer.
With a quantum, we've got...
take a refrigerated truck around.
We've got 50 performance cores and 35 low power cores and 200 neural engine cores and 6 quantum cores. That's not going to happen. Unless, as you say, you've got this refrigerator truck to carry it around in.
To live in while you use your phone.
Yes.
Yeah. So anything about new quantum computers, just immediately, I can't stop my brain doing this, but I immediately go to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh dear.
And Deep Thought.
And the infinite improbability.
Yeah, just all these things start swirling round in there.
He was ahead of his time, wasn't he, Douglas Adams?
Yeah. So just anything like this, I think, Deep Thought. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask it for answers to things without giving it decent questions.
I think we got some decent questions.
Yeah.
I think what it's not for is anything that people directly do. It's for people who are researching climate, researching the boundaries of pharmaceutical or medical, people who are wanting to run simulations that sort of defy belief in their complexity. Those are the people who are sort of excitedly trying to get their hands on this.
Sure.
And possibly intelligence agencies.
Always.
But, those are the people who are going to want these. I think the world and society can benefit from the outcomes of them.
Yeah.
But not direct. It's hard to think of any direct applications.
Yeah.
React for quantum.
React.
When you're running the fastest web server in the world, that then collapses into an
infinite improbability.
Improbability something. There's a great art. There's an article that somebody's written on Medium. She's called Jill Platt.
Okay.
And she's written a 10-minute read on Medium called A Quantum Programming Quest for Newbies with 10 use cases. And it illustrates, it's got a brilliant diagram with a picture of a bit from classical computing. That's got a blue spot for 0 and a red spot for 1. Then it's got a picture of a qubit, which is a sphere made of with 0 and 1 at the top and the bottom, and a sort of slow gradation between 0 and 1 in terms of the colour coding. And it talks about programming them, and it talks about these different interesting gates. And actually, it does have a bit of a worked example, so you can install a Jupyter notebook. You can't actually install a quantum computer on it, but I think you can install basically an emulation of one where you can write and test quantum programs. It has the words "buckle up, quantum explorers" halfway down. So
okay. Well,
that's when you have to buckle up as a quantum explorer.
Okay.
And then you're getting something that's looking really quite like regular code, but it has comments like, put the qubit in a superposition of 0 and 1 states.
That's a really
None
bad
of my
comment.
code has had any comments along those lines.
Yeah, that's not really telling you what the code's doing, is it?
Initialized counters for the 0s and 1s results. That I understand that. So yes, anyway, there is it's a bit Microsoft centric, but if you want to have a go and be a go hero of quantum computing,
buckle up.
You can. You too can. Well, no, you can start gently and then buckle up when you get halfway through. And you're writing comments like,
what? Then litter your code with unnecessary comments.
Route the quantum phase gate through the phase coupler and open the X gate to infinity and beyond. The people who were actors in Star Trek apparently got very good at making up technobabble about the things they were doing. And they would just talk about quantum phase inhibitors.
So this could just be that, couldn't it?
It does seem like a quite elaborate practical joke.
Yes,
that's what it is. So I'm going to go with it's a real thing.
It's probably.
I mean, I know IBM were doing it before I left, actually, and they had computers with 4 qubits, but now we're up to 500 qubits, which is apparently enough to do a lot.
A lot of things.
A lot of things. Well, I'm quite exhausted by that thing, Ash.
I must admit, after a day at work, listening to all the challenging concepts of quantum computing.
You'll be going in tomorrow and recommending they get one.
Absolutely. For the e-commerce site. So we can predict with certainty exactly what everyone wants to buy. Okay. That was what kind of thing was that?
A baffling thing.
Baffling thing. Yeah.
The person I was talking to earlier said she might listen to this episode to find out what the answer was. If you've done that, Juliet, I apologise unreservedly for what you've just had to go through. I'm just eating my Percy Pig.
That's quite all right.
I'm allowed because it's the interlude.
It is the interlude.
I think we've got a reasonable amount of interlude-y kind of stuff, haven't we?
I think so.
Can't find any of it because I'm still looking at information about Willow.
Willow of good.
The not film. In which case, why don't you start, Ash?
Okay.
You can probably remember your things.
Yes.
I mean, your interlude things.
My interlude things.
They're different from the regular things because we don't just have 2 of them. And they're not, yes, anyway.
Yeah.
Different from the regular things.
So the first item
Ooh.
on the interlude agenda is that a new Leeds testing atelier is going to appear in 2025.
Excellent.
Well, it's probably going to be pretty similar to the old.
I was going to say, do you mean a new instance of the existing Leeds
We've
testing
instantiated a new instance of it rather than it's a.
You haven't defined an awful lot of new member properties.
No. So it's going to appear in 2025. I'm thinking May at the moment.
So not definitely.
We need to get some sponsorship first.
Sorry, I'm making a joke because you said May, which seems to indicate
right. Sorry, that I missed that.
That is completely. A month, but it's also an indication of improbability.
Yeah.
Well, less than certainty.
Less than certainty. So yeah, it looks like May 2025, and it'll be at a new venue. So
you've made that difficult decision.
Yeah. Well, I've just had a few accessibility challenges that we felt we needed to deal with. So we're going to do that. So that's quite exciting.
It is. Maybe I should try and come this time. Can we do a what a lot of things thing at it?
That would be interesting. I like that idea.
What could we do?
I've been to a few conferences where they've recorded a podcast.
What a lot of things karaoke.
Yeah. There's something there.
We'll get an audience and they'll all sit there shouting, Figma at us.
So we could have presentation karaoke, but all Figma related. And then it's just me on the stage.
It's all the same slide.
All the same for like 20 minutes talking about Figma and how much I like it as a tool and how much I dislike the use of it.
And how much you consider it to be used by tools. Sorry, I'm going to edit that out as well.
Yeah, because lots of, clever, sensible people use Figma in very clever, sensible ways. It's just that I've not met them yet.
Yes, instead you meet the people who abuse Figma and bury developers in a sad pile of unrealisable designs.
Yeah. I was testing something today, and I'm not going to do this, right? Because it's just, I'm not going to let Figma take over. I'm going to stop. And I'm going to move on.
When are you going to move on? After the Christmas party?
After the Christmas party.
Because you've basically invited everyone to the Christmas party on the grounds that they can talk to you about Figma.
Yeah, absolutely. But I should start to wean myself off the Figma
it's going
obsession.
To be the 2024 thing.
Yes. And then I'm going to move on and find...
It's a pity that this episode's coming out in 2025,
well,
really,
we'll see. So, my other interlude item. You're very slowly reaching for Percy Pig.
Well, I feel like the sound of rustling Percy Pigs on the table will be quite... It's one of those things where you do it very slightly and then basically the whole episode just turns into a deafening crackling sound. Yeah, so, sorry, you were going to say something sensible.
So, I'm getting a Steam Deck for Christmas.
I want one of those.
Yeah. So...
It's like you don't have to run Windows to play games.
Yeah. So I've resisted I've done the thing where it's like, I think I want it, but also I want to hold off for a little while to make sure that I want it, rather than just buying it and then thinking, I don't really need or want that.
That's why this podcast works, Ash. It's the differences in the hosts.
Yeah.
See, I buy it and then think, what have I got this for?
So I depending on when this podcast comes out, I will either be playing on the Steam Deck or...
At the moment that
it comes out.
Because it normally comes out at 5 a.m.
Yes. Well, I won't be up at 5, although I might.
If it's a good enough
game. If the game is good enough. So the reason I wanted it was you can play lots of early access stuff on it as well, which is nice, which is not generally available on consoles, which is the majority of my gaming capability at the moment.
Well, I must admit that I've also thought about that because I just don't have any platforms that can play big games. Yeah. So I've got a Switch and I absolutely love playing the Zelda games, even though I'm often quite bad at them. I've been playing Tears of the Kingdom, in which you're supposed to win by constructing machines out of the various mechanisms they give you to build things and have batteries for things. And so I look on YouTube and I see people killing enormous monsters with this fantastic whirling construction that they've made, which spins around and kills the monster while you stand at a safe distance unharmed. Whereas my building things tends to be, I've built something and then it's broken. And then the monster came and ate one of the wheels.
Right.
And now I'm trying to drive off on 3 wheels before it catches me. That's the kind of thing that I do.
That sounds like much more fun, to be fair.
It's generally funny.
Yeah.
Which is, I suppose, is fine by me. But I haven't gotten a Windows machine and won't get one.
Yeah, me neither.
So this seems like a very good way of accessing that massive catalogue of Steam. And does it, like the Switch, plug into your TV?
Yes, so I've got the dock.
Hang on, now you're confusing me. So you are getting this for Christmas, or you've got it already for Christmas?
It exists in my house. It's still in its box.
You're not allowed to open it till Christmas?
No. And I'm a grown-up, so I can leave it alone for a few more days.
I'm not grown up. I would just open it.
Would you?
Yes, and then Paula would come and tell me off at great length, because she is a model of self-control. Yeah. I'm a model of, I'll have another Percy Pig, please. which is why I'm not a model at all.
So that is exciting.
That is exciting.
I am excited.
And now I want one of those for Christmas.
Well, perhaps I can bring mine. You can review it for your needs before purchasing.
Why would I do that when I could just purchase it and discover whether or not it met my needs?
You're a true consumer, Ian.
Yes. I try.
You are the capitalist dream.
Yeah, but I'm not the recipient of the capitalist dream. No money.
You make the dreams come true.
Yes,
Everyone else's
of
dreams.
other capitalists.
Yeah.
Or not even other ones, just capitalists.
So those were my items.
But not things.
But not things.
Because when we say things around here, we mean something very specific.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've done another talk.
Yes. That's 2 talks in quick succession.
Well, compared with the last 4 years before the pandemic when I did them before.
So it's kind of like the pattern of the What a Lot of Things recordings, isn't it?
Intermittent at best.
So,
yes.
With sudden bursts of activity.
So the first talk was about AI and how we've been working on putting AI into Squadify's platforms to help teams. This talk was about podcasting.
Very meta.
Yes. And I must say, I think it went all right. I don't know if you've heard of Pecha Kucha before.
Yes.
So as I now can't do exposition about it to you because you've said you know what it is, I will just do exposition about it for the one listener.
to the listener.
To the listener. And the exposition is that it's a presentation like other ones, but you have to produce exactly 20 slides and you don't control them. They are run on a timer for 20 seconds per slide. So that means that however many words you have to say, your talk lasts for 6 minutes and 40 seconds and then you're done. And because of the relentless progression of the slides every 20 seconds, you really have to work to make sure that you don't fall behind, because there's nothing worse than arriving at the end of the slides 2 slides before the end of the presentation. But obviously that is a branded thing. So obviously we haven't licensed that name to use
sponsored by
in this podcast or otherwise. So it was, I'm just going to say, a lightning talks event put on by Ilkley Arts. And there were 8 talks in the evening, and they were all really good, actually. There was one about a project for dancers to generate music by giving them an Apple Watch or an Android Watch.
Mm.
And then they can vary parameters or generate notes on Ableton Live by just their movements. So it means that instead of dancers dancing to music, they participate in creating it by the dancing that they're doing.
Nice.
So that's really interesting. That's a chap called Simon East did that. And there was one by Dave Hesman-Halge, but he did Why I Love Churches Even Though I'm an Atheist.
Right.
So he talked about various churches that he's been to see and told interesting stories about them. And there was a chap who makes bronze sculptures. There was all sorts. It was really good. And me wittering on about What a Lot of Things and my other podcasts in between them all. So it was good fun.
And you got to talk about clangers for 20 seconds.
I did talk about clangers very briefly.
Yeah.
I said, What a Lot of Things is a quote from the Clangers. And then I sort of suggested that Ash and I might have things in common with the Clangers, but that we probably ought to update our artwork, which we have done.
And now, as well as clangers, there are humans.
Yes. To wit.
To wit.
You and me. Thee and me. Is
Thee
that
and
what they
me.
say around here?
That is what they say around here.
So yes, good fun had by all, I hope, but by me specifically, although my words per minute was considerable.
Got to pack it in, right?
Yes, you have to say all the things.
All the things.
At all the speed. No, it's funny, I fell behind almost immediately.
Well, yeah.
The first slide I talked too slowly and I thought,
Well, I guess you've got to try and find the pace, and you're not going to find it straight away.
Yes, despite all the rehearsing that you might have done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny feeling doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, because generally you go a bit faster when you speak on stage, I find. But
yes.
I guess it's not necessarily true. It's not a rule.
A presentation coach that I recently listened to a session from was talking about the use of silence in presentations, which was quite interesting. And she said, when you say something important that you want people to remember, just stop for a couple of seconds, which feels a lot longer.
Especially at 20 seconds a slide as well.
Well, yeah, there's none of that. I didn't do any of that yesterday. But stop for 2 or 3 seconds, because just let it sink in. And that's really powerful. And actually, I tried it in something else I did, and it really does work. People are just, ooh.
Can you see the light bulbs going? Well, not literally, but...
I metaphorically hope for the light bulbs going on. That's the best. That's the closest I can get to that. So yes, that was my exciting.
That is exciting.
Recent development, and we should totally do something to do with what a lot of things that they're testing it.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good idea.
What a lot of things karaoke. Members of the audience have to give us a thing, and then we have to make all of our standing jokes about it in under a minute.
Get one in. What is your thing?
What? Yes, yeah.
There we go. Knock that one off really easily.
Tick me do. Well, you can do what a lot of things bingo, where we record an episode. We have a bingo cards with all of our jokes on it.
First 5 minutes.
Yeah, it won't take
bingo.
Longer than that. It won't take longer than that. Maybe we could just come up with one that we're just going to hold off on.
Yeah.
And we can just tease people that we're going to do it and then not do it. Like the what one, we could just say,
why?
Well, that depends what you might think about that. Which I suppose must bring us neatly back to things.
I think so.
Even though it actually isn't really bringing us anywhere close to things. But,
no. But we should probably move on to another thing.
Yes. I feel like otherwise, we'd be back to what a lot of things. Nobody wants that.
Well, you say nobody.
Bingo. Nobody except me.
Nobody except you.
So, Ash, what is your thing?
What is my thing?
What is your thing?
So, I want to talk about the power of technology nostalgia. There are many things that evoke nostalgia, I think, aren't there? So I was thinking about this the other day because there was a review of a version of the Spectrum 48K with the rubber keys rather.
Well, yes. Rubber keys and rubber keyboard.
Yes, both. So that was the first machine I ever owned, the Spectrum 48K.
Oh.
And I just remember we had the speech module as well that you plugged into the back and you could type in what you wanted it to say. And we used to write songs. And it was so cool. But it wasn't cool. But,
I just remember, I think it must have been, what was it? It was some computer. I remember hearing it singing Poisoning Pigeons in the Park. I think it must have been something to do with VAX VMS and Digital Equipment Corporation. But there was a voice synthesizer for it, and someone made it sing Poisoning Pigeons in the Park by Tom Lehrer.
So we came up with our own songs. We
That's
made
even better.
Yeah, exactly.
No pigeons were poisoned in your park.
No. And then I remember getting the Spectrum magazine, and people would send in their programs, and then you could type them in and run.
I did that.
Yeah.
And then the RAM pack would wobble.
Yeah.
And it would all be lost. That was a ZX81, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, so I loved those days.
You see, I did. I did.
Yeah. But then it kind of got me to thinking. So now when I've got something called a Super Pocket, which is like a.
I'm looking at your Super Pocket.
Well, I do have
your
Super
shirt.
Pockets. For my What a Lot of Things shirt that I always seem to wear.
You do. You are remarkably consistent.
But it's called a Super Pocket, and it's got loads of games on it, all the old games, and like emulates like the Atari to 1600. So it's got Millipede and Centipede, and then tiny versions of consoles. So there's a tiny Super Nintendo, and I have that.
Does it play all the sounds really squeakily? Because it's so tiny.
Like a tiny violin.
Yeah.
No, you put it into your television. It doesn't come with a tiny screen as well.
Oh, is it like an HDMI?
Yeah.
All it is an HDMI plug kind of thing.
Yeah. And then you plug that in and you can play all the old games to your heart's content. But then I realise that when I start to play these old games to my heart's content...
Is your heart not content?
No, it's not. It's just like, is this... What has happened here? Why? Obviously, I've changed over the years, and the games have, because they're point in time, and they're not enough.
Well, that's the thing. Computers were amazing when they first came out. I remember I was reading an article that you linked to about this in The Guardian, and he was talking about going to Debenhams or somewhere to play on their computers.
Yeah.
I went to W.H. Smith in North Finchley, and I used to go on the ZX81, and I used to write for I equals 1 to 22, print, hello, next I, or whatever it was. I'm not even sure I'm remembering BASIC particularly well. That's probably, I'm remembering C. So maybe it was, no. Oh my goodness, I've forgotten Sinclair BASIC. Finally, managed
it. So many years.
But yeah, that experience you related there of typing in things from magazines, oh my goodness. That was the literal worst. And then particularly, sometimes they would be in machine code, which was always a bit awe-inspiring for me.
Yeah.
But then you would have to type in REM, which was one keystroke for the whole word REM.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was just like 1,000 random characters. And if you did one of them wrong, it immediately crashed and you had to start again.
Truly rewarding endeavours.
My son Tom went through a stage of installing Linux on his computers, and he found a distribution of Linux where the rewards of installing it included a feeling of accomplishment. And he said he did have a feeling of accomplishment after he managed to install it.
After many hours.
Yes, exactly so. But that was nothing to the feeling of accomplishment of typing in a machine code program from a magazine and it working. Because these computers, there's no memory protection or anything. If it crashed, that was it. There was no, you unplugged it and plugged it in again.
Yeah.
With tears in your eyes.
It was lost. So what was your favourite game as a lad?
I am going to go back further to the ZX81, which preceded the Spectrum.
Yeah.
It didn't even have colour. It had 16 shades of grey. And these computers were all plugged in using a PAL connection, which young people these days haven't even heard of.
Mm-hmm.
It was a coaxial cable that had the same sort of signal that came down from your TV area on the top of your house. So it pretended to be a particular TV station, Channel 39. It was on.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it's remarkable that you just think about these things. How did that even work? So we
against the odds, that's how it worked.
Against the odds, yes. And the ZX81, I never owned one, but I used to go to WH Smith's, and the most terrifying computer game I've played in my life was 3D Monster Maze on the ZX81. And you think about how they would implement a 3D game on a computer with a 3.5 megahertz chip, and NVIDIA hadn't been invented yet. So just for the hard of converting, that's 0.0035 gigahertz.
Yeah.
It's just, how did that even work? It was about 6 frames per second. So, so people who are just like, oh, I can't get out of bed for under 120 frames per second, they probably wouldn't have thought much of it. And this game made a sufficient impression on me that 17 years ago it is now, I got an emulator and played 3D Monster Maze again. And I made a screen recording of it and uploaded it to YouTube, where it still remains my most successful YouTube video. And people writing comments on it in 2024. And some of them are just uncomprehending because they can't imagine why anyone would waste their time on anything so crap. And then some of them are like, that's so bloody scary. And it was.
Yeah.
And it was all in machine code as well.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I didn't have to ever type it in.
Yeah, that's true. So when I think about, because you were kind of glowing while you were talking about that game and that experience.
It's just perspiring.
Just perspiring. So I guess I was thinking, do you think that programming, has it lost some of its like early like innocence, if you know what I mean, and like naivety? Or did it ever have it?
It's lost its high stakes.
That's true.
The stakes of if you want to save it, it's no good just typing Command S. You have to plug a cassette tape player in through a 3.5 millimeter mono or stereo jack plug, and then find the right place on the tape where you had saved the thing that you're working on.
Yeah.
And then you had to load it for like 2 minutes, and it screamed at you in shrieks of electronic pain and made funny stripes on the screen.
Yeah.
That was the Spectrum. The ZX81 just made wild interference patterns when you loaded it. It was just wild beyond belief.
Yeah.
That's the first programming I did when I had those computers. And I remember writing an optimized version of the Unix crypt function on my Sinclair QL that I got. I was very, very proud of that Sinclair QL. And it had a 68008 CPU. So I rewrote the crypt algorithm from C into 68,000 assembler.
Yeah.
And then couldn't be asked to write a password guesser that used it, because the effort of just doing that was enough. The way I feel about it, I feel like this about a lot of nostalgia things. You know, when you're a teenager, the music that you like in those particular years of your teenage life, you like it forever, even though it was crap.
Yeah.
So modern you, if you heard it for the first time, you'd be like, oh, whatever. But because of all that association and evocation, you like it still. And I think there's something of that in my sort of memory of programming. But I just found it very exciting to be able to program a computer.
Yeah.
There was a book my dad had that he gave me to read, in which, and I tried for about half an hour today to locate the title of it. But the more I searched for it, the more I didn't find it. But basically, it let you program a computer. It taught you how to program, but it recognized that no one had a computer. So you'd basically write the program, and then it would tell you how to step through it to see if it worked.
Right, okay.
It was just like, oh, okay. My dad had a Texas Instruments TI-58 programmable calculator from his work. And again, I was absolutely besotted with that, and I programmed all kinds of things on that. I used to program like guess the number games. Yeah. Where it just say -1 if it was lower or +1 if it was higher. And then you typed in another number. In fact, I did that. So one of my great triumphs with my Casio FX 780p when I was 14, which had 38 programmable steps, was programming a guess the number game in 38 programmable steps. I considered it to be a great triumph. It wasn't very interesting to play it, but to make it fit in the 39 steps was a very...
Yeah, that's like an interesting concept about working with, you know, when you first started programming on older computers. It was like, what you built wasn't amazing, but it was the process of getting there. That was the amazing thing.
Yes.
And I think, to me, it is somewhat flipped. Amazing things can be built, but the process of getting there is different now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, you know, like I said, the stakes are lower. You can put together a mobile app with relative ease if you know roughly what you're doing. Whereas...
yes, ChatGPT.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Whereas programming, you know, when I was younger, the output wasn't great, but there was so much fun in the journey to get there.
But and the question is, was that us, or was it that time and that?
Yeah.
The thing is that what we had was rarity. So hardly anyone had a computer. And then when you looked at the people who had them, the ones who used them for not just playing games but program them, that was even less. And there was scarcity in it. I don't know. There's all sorts of things in there, isn't there? There's that time of life.
Yeah.
There's that feeling of discovery. I remember a friend of mine wrote a piece of software for the BBC Micro that was like a little thing, and you could put it in, and then it would make every 14th keystroke not register. And you'd see, and they put it on these computers in the school, and then people would be like, type.
Imagine if you were playing Granny's Garden and your 14th keystroke.
I know.
That would be absolutely heartbreaking.
The tune, you see, I've never played Granny's Garden, but my brother Dan refers to it.
Yeah.
And the thing he refers to is that the music from it is a sort of piece of Irish folk music that I'm very fond of the folk music version of it.
Yeah.
Rather than the beepy version. It's like do 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 do. I don't know. Maybe I didn't do that very well.
Yeah, I don't know. But that was beepy anyway.
Yes, it was beepy.
Or at least duty.
Yes. I never did play that, but Dan talks about it. He played it.
Yeah.
And it had that music.
Yeah. Yeah. So, because there was another article that I kind of, when I went on this like journey thinking about this, so it was on Game Central, basically saying sort of retro video games are a waste of everyone's time and money. It's like, there's no point in going back there. You know? So I found that a really sort of curious, because obviously I'd been thinking about how I'd invested in retro games.
And been disappointed.
And then been like, oh, right, okay, well, that was kind of interesting for a few minutes, but now I'm going to go back to playing on my PlayStation 5 in some very rich world that has been created for me. So I just found that, I was like, oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't know if I fully agree.
Well, I think that's a bit harsh. I mean, the fact is, it's not a waste of everyone's time and money if somebody made it and somebody else bought it.
Yeah.
And people do have those kinds of nostalgia. But I think you're right that by comparison with modern games, they're very thin because they're miracles of resource usage.
Yeah.
And interestingly, most of these things were written by one person.
Yeah.
Because there was no concept of having a team writing a game.
No.
And then you'd get some of these sort of Blizzard software or whatever who would publish a game, but probably one person had written it, but someone else marketed it for them and someone else took a percentage for something and
maybe did a bit of sound design for them or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beep design.
Yeah. So I find it really interesting that in like the gaming world, there's so many remakes of old games and sequels to, older ideas. One question that we kind of pondered was, does nostalgia like hinder you innovating on like?
Well, it depends who you are in that scenario. Because I mean, if you're a large company, like for example, I'm just going to think about possible examples, Bethesda, and you've got this incredible game. Skyrim is an incredible game, but basically you sort of think, well, I've got a risky option of doing something entirely new that may fall flat, or I've got a less risky option of doing something based on something that I already know people love and will come to.
Yeah.
Then, it's commercially tempting to take that less risky route, isn't it?
Yeah. Just sort of play it safe, if you like.
Or at least safer.
Yeah.
But
even if it's part of like a long decline.
Yes,
still...
exactly. Yes. I don't know. I mean, the thing is that look at Stardew Valley. I mean, one person did that.
Yeah.
I mean, that still blows my mind that one person did that.
Yeah.
It took him years. Concerned Ape is his...
Yeah. And I guess like that was the norm, as in one person would generally...
In the 80s.
Yeah. It was the norm for that to happen.
Yeah.
And then now it's like mind-blowing that someone could come up with something as...
all the music, all the artwork, all of the coding, all of the storylines. I mean, you think about the different roles that are involved in games now.
Yeah.
And one person to do all of them, it seems like that must be quite a remarkable person to be able to do that. Because not all of us have got that whole range of skills.
Yeah. But I suppose it's the same for non-gaming software as well. Like you used to have very, very small teams, 2 or 3 people maybe working on, applications.
This reminds me of the Sinclair QL again. So Scion, who made organisers for a long time, but they got their start doing software for Sinclair computers. They did Hungry Horace, do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was them. They did a suite of Office. They did basically Microsoft Office for the QL before Microsoft Office existed. And so there was a word processor and a spreadsheet and another thing, maybe a database.
Yeah.
And presentations hadn't been invented. And they had this feature where if you took the little drive out of the thing while you had a document open, that was it. You could not recover that document.
Yeah. So even if you'd written your memoir,
you could have written your memoir, but if you forgot and took the micro drive out before you saved it, it wasn't just that You lost the work you'd done since you last saved it. That was it. You lost the whole thing.
High stakes indeed.
Yes. It was very high stakes. I remember being slightly bemused by that. Even then, I thought that's a weird design choice.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I can see that you don't save it constantly. But to basically mark it as open just so that you can refuse to have anything to do with it later is a bit rubbish.
And then say, well, you won't do that again, will you?
No, you learned your lesson, have you?
So yeah, as a thing, I didn't really sort of know where I was going to go with this one. I just think that it's just quite a powerful force, nostalgia.
It is, yeah.
And technology has changed so much.
Those were simpler times.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know if they were. They probably were.
I think we should start a concerted campaign to go back to the 1980s.
Yeah.
I think the Generation X or whoever they are, the generation that wants us to go back to the 50s, they're mistaken.
Oh, right, okay.
It should be the 80s.
It should be the 80s. So Generation Y were right. If that's the right generation. I never know.
Generation Y-O-Y-O-Y.
Y-O-Y, mate, yeah. So yeah, I didn't really know with this thing, like, well, some things don't have a real conclusion, do they? But it just seems, nostalgia seems like such a powerful force in society and definitely in technology, because we are part of the generation that started to grow up with it.
We are.
And it became, part of the fabric of society and who we are. And then, with things like quantum computing, for example, even those of us that grew up with it, there are things happening now that challenge all of our understanding of technology as we see it.
As we've known it in the past.
As we grew up with, basically.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, that was my thing.
Nice callback there to the quantum computing disaster from earlier.
Exactly. So I think it's nice that we've gone from quantum computing to the ZX81. We've covered the full range of...
Yes. In the next episode, we're going to go from the ZX80 all the way back to the Babbage's analytical engine.
I could regale you with tales of the first bug, which was a literal bug.
It was.
But I won't do that.
Because that's a thing.
That is a thing. That is probably a thing.
It's probably a thing.
Yeah. So 2 monumental things, Ian.
Yes. I think yours was more fun because we actually can do nostalgia ourselves, whereas neither of us can really do quantum computing.
You can just sort of look confused.
Well, sadly for our listener, they won't know how confused we were looking.
Just imagine how confused we are.
It was quite confused.
Yeah. For listeners who will see us at the Christmas party,
perhaps
you will then see how confused we can be. Because we're in a social situation.
What we ought to do is publish this episode with a custom cover art, which is the same as the current one, but we're looking really confused in it. Just to give people
I'm sure we can
idea.
capture that quite easily.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much any of the other pictures we took last time.
Yeah, that's true, actually, yeah.
I think everyone should, or at least more people should hold their eyes open with their fingers when they're having their picture taken.
It's the only way I can keep my eyes open.
Something great about it. So I hope you're going to wear your traditional What a Lot of Things shirt for the Christmas party. Otherwise, people won't know it's you.
I don't know why this has happened.
Well, you could do a sort of anti-Figma t-shirt.
Anti-Figma t-shirt.
Maybe you could design it using Figma. In a hyper-ironic twist.
Because then there'd be 3 different Figma files with different designs for it, and then we'd have to go and find out which ones are right and which ones are the latest and which ones have been signed off.
That would inevitably happen, even though it's just us.
I think we should probably say goodbye now.
To Figma.
To Figma.
Or to each other.
To each other, to this episode.
Farewell, cruel world. Oh, dear.
So Happy New Year again, everyone.
Yes. And Merry Christmas for 2025. You heard it here first.
In whatever order you heard this, all salutations of the season.
Whatever it may be.
Whatever it may be. Happy Easter, everyone.
This has echoes of what we used to do when we argued about deadlines in episodes in 2019, where I said the next episode will be the 12th of January, and then it was 2 years later.
Yeah. I'm not going to explain again about deadlines, estimates, and the only reason I attend sessions which involve those types of words. Oh, God damn it, I'm going to start to explain. No, I'm not going to explain. Okay. The only reason I attend those sessions...
All I did was look attentive for a second and it was enough.
The only reason I attend those sessions is so that people don't say, well, how long will testing take? If they don't say it, great. If they do say it, I then have to explain to them why that's a bad thing. And that testing is not a separate activity for the team. And testing can only ever stop, it cannot be finished.
And you can't do any testing unless there's a quality engineer present.
Exactly. Cold ash. Winter, just so we're clear.
There can be only one.
And that's me.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's who you meant.
That's who I meant.
Right, okay, good.
That's who I always mean.
Okay, right. Now we should probably finish before I start talking about something else. Which is odd. We flipped roles here a little bit, haven't we? No, just because you look attentive. I've got other things I can talk about, but I'm not going to do it.
I've got a now bet on with myself about how long I can keep Ash talking on by just looking attentive.
That's it. I'm going to turn away.
It's very compelling, isn't it? My attentive look.
It is. Eyebrows up.
My whole being is radiating a sense of, oh, I know you're about to say something really interesting.
Tell me
that
more.
Will complete me.
Tell me again the same stories that you always tell.
Yes. Make again the same jokes that you always make. And that, boys and girls, is what a lot of things.
So thank you, dear listener.
Yes. Thank you indeed. And goodbye.
Goodbye.